The next speaker in line is an interesting speaker, and I'd love to introduce Sarah Bailey. She's a co founder and CEO at Open Format. Sarah is the co founder and CEO of this amazing company where she's been redefining how Web3 communities connect, exchange value, and grow. Alongside leading her team, she also serves as co chair of BIMA's Web3 Council and as non executive director at RHP Group. Previously, she co founded Element Business, rebalanced, and spent over 3 years at What If Innovation. It's part of Accenture, helping organizations innovate and scale. With deep experience across leadership, innovation, and community, Sarah brings both strategic vision and hands on experience of building the future of community. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being with us. It's a pleasure hosting you and know so much about how you've been building in the Web3 space.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you today and part of this amazing session that you're running. So thank you so much. I am just going to go and now share my screen. I have been at the forefront of innovation. I've spent my career over the last 18 years solving different problems, using cutting edge technology to think about problems in different spaces. But I'm not a community manager myself. I have had a lot of experience that is adjacent to community management, but I think it's really important just to signal that. And I come here as someone who has spent the last few years being absolutely obsessed with solving problems for communities and for community managers. But I just want you to know that my intent here in sharing what I'm going to share today is not to be right, but it is to be curious, and it is to learn, and it is to bring innovation and understand your challenges and more about the challenges of communities, community management, and the opportunities of the future so that I can try and do something about it, because that is what I am good at. Another signal that I just want to share before I get started is that what I'm here to talk about, participation and participation economies, and this kind of shift that I believe we're all a part of. Other people talk about this. And so I'm not claiming to be the first person talking about participation economies at all. And some of you may know a lot about this, and some of you, this might be the first time that you're hearing some of these concepts, which is always why it's quite hard to know where to place this. But in my experience, a lot of the people who've tended to talk about this have gone in at a technology first level. It's decentralized this or AI this. And my goal here is to not talk at all about technology. My goal here is to talk about a shift, to talk about an opportunity that I think is very, very significant, and to imagine how things could be if we thought about participation differently, if we thought about exchanges differently in our communities. So that is my intent. And I hope that makes sense. But I'm here to learn, and I want to learn from all of you. And I want to share with you some thoughts and opinions. So a question, and then I promise I actually will get started. A question from myself. I would love to know what the main 2 or 3 platforms that you use for your communities, what they are. So if you could enter into the chat, is it Slack? Is it Discord? Is it Instagram? Where are the spaces? Is it bespoke to you? Where are the spaces that you are you're hosting your communities? If you're happy to put those into the chat, I would love that, and I will come back to that a bit later. Okay, let's get started. So this shift, and it's interesting actually, I've been on a few of these different calls and listening in to some of these different presentations over the last 24 hours, and lots of different people have started out by talking about this shift that is happening right now. And for me, the shift that I want to talk about is a shift from clicks and from likes and attention to participation, to contribution. And one of the challenges that I see, and the challenges I see with community managers that I work with, is that community contributions and contributions across your network, across your ecosystem that you might manage, they're often invisible. They are fragmented, they're unmanaged, and often people don't have systems to track, to see and to reward the value that's being created across these different platforms. We know as community managers, as people involved in this space, that communities drive loyalty, spark innovation, fuel growth. And yet we don't have systems to track some of these key contributions that can act as growth engines. In addition to this, some of the other changes that I'm seeing are that Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and again, this will not be new information to you, they act differently online. They don't just follow, they build. They want to shape outcomes. They want to create and be part of this co-creation with brands and businesses and organizations and clubs that they engage with. And then also we're seeing a huge change in paid acquisition and the success of paid acquisition. Some people go so far as to say that it's collapsing. And I think it's such an opportunity if you think about all these different things that are coming together. And this shift that I think we're seeing from audiences to active communities, I really believe that this is the biggest opportunity that we have had since social media. And I think the change that we can create as a part of this is enormous. So let's talk about measurement. And again, like, please feel free to comment in the chat and kind of share with me your thoughts and reflections on this. And the people that I work with, one of the things that they tend to say to me is that for years, we have measured community success. We've been measuring kind of community activities by clicks, by likes, by impressions, follows, RSVPs, metrics that have given a lot of legitimacy and are very, very important. But they're not the full story. And as the famous saying goes, what got us here is not going to get us there. And so what I want to talk about is, what if we could actually build on this now? What if instead of counting likes, what if we could measure meaningful contributions? And what if meaningful could be defined by us, by an organization, by a specific community? What if we defined meaningful contribution? And then what if we measured that at scale across our entire ecosystem? And what if members could be recognized not for what they buy or what they use, but what they build, what they create, what they share? And I see pockets of this, and I'm going to talk a lot about this in a bit, but it's pockets of this where there are kind of formalized ways of people giving feedback to products or getting involved in sharing something. But what if we could do this organically? Anyone who's sharing anything and contributing to our community, what if we could see it, have that visibility, and have those ways of recognizing that? And what if also we could connect the dots across our platforms? So what if we knew that Mary, who is giving someone advice and kind of sharing reels on TikTok today about our brand, about our business, what if we know that that's the same person as at Mary523 on Discord? And we could connect those dots and we could have visibility of these people. The technology exists now to be able to do this, to be able to measure differently, to be able to think about how we exchange value differently across our communities in ways that benefit both our members and our organizations and our communities. And it's early with some of this, but there are pockets of where this is creating amazing change and amazing growth. And so the gap that I want to talk about, there's a gap that I think a lot of people feel. And again, please share if this resonates with you. Please share if it doesn't resonate with you. I'm here to learn. I'm here to be curious, as I said. The people that I've spoken to, the gap they feel is felt every day. The member that they know who answers the tough questions faster and more thoroughly than the support team. I built a business in the elder care space in the UK, which was very much focused, this was about a decade ago, which was very focused on kind of solving problems for caregivers. And as part of that, one of the things that I did was build a community of people who were caring for their loved ones, for them to connect, for them to share. And this point really resonates with me. I can still remember the person in that community who, like, this became such a source of sharing important information and such purpose for her to be part of this community. And she was the one who anyone would share things and kind of raise questions, and she would be there before any of us were. And I think it's such an amazing thing when you see that. It's also the community members who welcome the newcomers, who make them feel at home. The person who writes the tutorials or creates the YouTube demos, and they spread like wildfire sometimes, and they outperform the expensive campaigns that the marketing team launches. It's the people who defend your product, the people who step in to defend your club, your product, your business, with a passion that no influencer could ever fake. These people, they create culture. They make communities stick. They drive loyalty, and they drive growth, and they drive innovation. And often it's without being asked, and often it's rarely recognized. We see them and we celebrate them in our hearts. I still think back to those people in that eldercare community. But often the dashboards, the reports, they don't see these people. They don't see these contributions, not at scale, not across the whole ecosystem, and not unless it's in a structured kind of campaign or a structured way of thinking about bringing people in and measuring it. If we think about just generically the people who step in and do this, often it's invisible, it's undervalued. And the real builders of culture, the real builders that we can coexist with, they go unrewarded. And this is the gap I'm here to talk about. And this is the gap that I think we can start to close. So to make this real for you, I'm going to give you a couple of examples. And one is of a global football club who I've been working with now for 9 months. And what I found fascinating, this is one of the biggest football clubs in the world. And what I found fascinating about this football club is when I first started speaking to them, one of the first things they said to me was, Sarah, we know the people who buy seats to come to a match. People buy tickets. They had 47,000 seats. They knew who those people were who would buy tickets. They knew who people were who buy merch. And they knew who their season ticket holders were. Now, if you look at their Instagram, if you look at their different channels across their whole community network, they have tens of millions of followers. They don't know who those people are. And their language, the way that they said to me, they said, they're rented. We're renting from these platforms, from YouTube, from Instagram, from TikTok. This is rented. This is not our community. We don't know who these people are. We can't connect the dots. We don't see what they're doing. But what if that could change? And so what if a club could recognize anyone globally who contributes to its culture? The fan who creates the meme, the supporter who organizes watch parties in their city, the kid in Seoul who stays up till 3 a.m. to live tweet matches. Right now, those contributions are invisible. But what if they weren't? What if they were recognized, visible, rewarded? For that club, for this football club I'm talking about, it opens up enormous opportunities. Imagine rewarding those fans globally for the content they create, the comments they share, the connections they form, and imagine connecting sponsors and brands directly to that global fan base. Not with interruptive ads and billboards that most people don't see, but actually aligned to contributions that fans want to participate in. This is what can happen when participation becomes the goal. The club doesn't just sell tickets and shirts, it turns community into what could be a global growth engine. And this isn't just about football, even just thinking sports. I've had conversations with Formula One, with tennis, you name it. Sports is an area right now that is one area really rethinking how do they connect with global community? How do they really have these new relationships with those communities? And what could that look like? Another example, let's talk about SaaS. So today, a lot of the time, a growth playbook could be LinkedIn ads, it could be emails, webinars, events, a funnel that is built for adoption and retention, which makes complete sense. But what if adoption and loyalty, what if they could also be powered by the community itself? Even more so than today. The engineer who jumps in to write a custom plugin and fix an annoying bug and then just open sources it to everybody. The power user who comes straight into Discord or straight onto Twitter, X, I still always get that wrong, I don't know about anybody else, and they answer the questions better than the support team can. The blogger who publishes 10 hidden features you need to know about this, and drives more qualified traffic than any of the paid campaigns could. Right now, a lot of these contributions are invisible. They may be celebrated in passing if they're seen, and there may be official programs set up to encourage things like this. But day to day, in my experience, they're rarely tracked, rarely rewarded. But what if they could be? What if these contributions could earn credits against product pricing, early access, roadmap influence, premium support, a salary, contributions that actually really encourage meaningful contribution, whatever that means to you. And this isn't just a dream, this isn't kind of far away. And I'm going to give you a few examples from other communities where this is happening today. Gaming is one. In gaming, participation is absolutely everything. You have skins, content, status, and players aren't consuming, they're creating, and they're creating billions in value because of it. Game studios, they're partnering with content creators and they're giving rewards out directly because of participation in streaming. And when players are contributing creatively rather than just consuming this content, they're more engaged, they're retained for longer, and they're fueling these self-sustaining ecosystems. Roblox is a perfect example of this. If you've heard of Roblox, they have created a billion-dollar ecosystem by enabling people to create their own games. And in the past year alone, I think it is, creators have earned $1 billion. $1 billion has been given to creators of games within the Roblox ecosystem because of things that they're able to create. Web3 is another one. And I know that kind of people have interesting connotations with Web3, especially when you talk about tokens and when you talk about crypto. That is not what I'm talking about, to be clear. What I'm here to talk about is value exchanges. And Web3 is really interesting because right now in that space, they are tracking contributions across different channels, Discord, Telegram, GitHub, and exchanging value in real time for contributions. And what's interesting about the methods behind this, if you imagine cheap, instant, cross-border payment systems that enable you to exchange value with users, with community users in real time, and for that value to be owned by the user. It's fascinating. And again, I think there's a lot of negativity around some of these spaces, but if you look at the utility, if you look at some of the innovation that's happening in this space, there's a lot we can take from it, in my opinion. And so why does this matter? Well, I think, to be honest with you, in my opinion, it's always mattered. And I think all of us potentially know this. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think contributions in our community, they matter. But actually, it's been impossible to measure this, to see it, to have the visibility, to exchange value. And this is the thing that's changing. We know that members who contribute stay 3 times longer than passive consumers. We know that these contributors become advocates. They become authentic ambassadors that drive referrals. Again, this is not new information, but it's the way that we can do it. It's the scale at which we can do it. And it's how we can connect some of these dots that's so fascinating. Serena, I don't know if Serena's on this, but I was reading one of Serena's blogs on Good Community. And one of the things that I was reading about is that Serena was talking about the importance of communal value. And in communities, for communities to succeed, needing to have value which is felt by both the community and the members and the organization. And these two-way value exchanges are such an interesting way for us to be able to do this. And I think the Spaces model highlights this perfectly. And when we talk about support, product advocacy through participation, we can create these sustainable competitive advantages. And I think that's what's so interesting. So I've got some questions for you, and for you to take away if you want to. And what I would love for you to reflect on is, who are your unrecognized heroes across your communities? And what are the actions that drive real value right now in your communities, but that don't show up in your reports? What are they? Does anything spring to mind immediately? What does meaningful contribution mean to you? Because I'll tell you now, it's very different in each community I've ever worked with. Meaningful contribution is different based on your goals, based on your culture, based on what's important to you. And also, what do you wish you could measure that would impact the growth of your community? What do you wish you could measure that you don't measure today? I would love for you to take these questions away, and I would love to know if there's more questions that you would want to answer. Again, coming here as someone curious who wants to try and solve for some of this, piece some of these things together. And so I'll leave you with just a few thoughts. I really believe, and I hope that this has come across throughout this this is quite a short presentation. I could talk about this for days. I promise I won't. But I think we are at such a turning point. I think we can move beyond engagement metrics and really start building these ecosystems where contribution, meaningful contribution, has visible value, and where we can have two-way value exchanges that turn this into entirely new economies. I've seen glimpses of this already. We all have, whether it's in gaming, in Web3, in a number of organizations who are really pushing what's possible and doing experiments, and where participation itself is becoming a currency. I think there's an opportunity in front of us right now to move from being moderators of activity and people who are gathering all of this information, doing an amazing job of it, to being architects of culture. I really believe we're at this moment and have this opportunity right now to design these systems where contributions are not just happening, but they matter. They're encouraged, they're recognized, and they're rewarded. And I believe that the future of digital culture will belong to those who unlock this shift. And it's community managers, I believe, who are absolutely uniquely positioned to do this because of where they sit at the intersection of all of these different parts. And so from me, I thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me to share some thoughts, to share some stimulus, some considerations. And if this has been interesting, if you want to learn more about what I'm doing, about the space, or even if you want to come and experiment with me and talk to me about your community, what you would love to measure, what's important to you, and run some experiments, then I would absolutely love that. So get in touch, here are my details. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for an amazing session, Sarah. It was genuinely full of wisdom and I'd say actionable practices that one can actually bring in as they build their entire journey. And I also might have a few questions for you. One being that since you mentioned that there is one part of community building when you need to understand the rewards associated, that's when the members would engage with you. So, how do you exactly build a reward and recognition system that keeps people engaged and you can have higher retention in the community?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and the honest truth of it is, it's definitely not a one size fits all, right? So in terms of like reward and recognition and these approaches to loyalty, again, I think there's been a number of new ways of thinking about loyalty, and we've kind of, some people have started gamifying certain things, and you know, adding a points layer in. And I've had conversations with very, very big companies about this. And the truth is, it's a lot more complex than people think it is. You can't just whack in a leaderboard and a point system and go, la di da, this is going to be fantastic and everyone's going to care more. No. Actually, what's really important is to understand and get a lot more into the psychology. And so I think the truth of it is that the technology exists to enable things like this to be done much easier. The strategic challenge is what's much more interesting and important, which is to understand, what does meaningful contribution mean? What's the kind of loyalty that you're trying to create? And then how do you incentivize people around that? Is that rewards in points? Is it rewards in a value exchange? What does that value actually mean? In a sports club, for example, incentivizing people with tiers and leaderboards, and that being able to relate to discounts on merch or being able to live stream matches, it works. Is that going to work in a tech SaaS company? Absolutely not. But the point is, what are the mechanics that you're trying to drive? And then let the technology do what it can do, but the psychology is much more important. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for this. And as we deep dive into this towards the end, absolutely, it's more about the psychology and then associating the rewards that would help us identify what someone wants, and we can cater to their needs in a more specific and customized way as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah, for this amazing session. And I think you could, anyone who wants to connect with you, could just scan the code. Other people can also maybe send the LinkedIn on the chat box and can like scan the code to connect with Sarah for any other deep down questions that they have for her. And it was an amazing session, Sarah. I loved hosting you, and I hope that you keep on providing the value that you do in such a concise way and build the communities the way that you've been building. Even I learned so many different things today being in this community space from you.
Thank you. No, and like I said, just I care deeply about this space, and so any opportunity to learn, to share, to connect with people is such a privilege. And so yeah, thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.